Welcome back to the Safe Room. I am your host, the President, Sean Williams. We're back with another episode. And today, yo guys, listen, man. When I say that I can get the guests, I can get the guests. Like, listen, like, don't stop playing with me. Today, we have a talented artist, a talented individual, and a community advocate for the Jane Finch community. Listen, I know today, usually my podcast is about me, but who they want? Baya. That, who them need? Baya. Today we got Nathan Baya. Nathan, my brother, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
Life, man. That's my response. Life.
Yeah, man. I hear that. I hear that to the fullest. Life is crazy, but life is meant to be lived. So let's make sure we exist more than we live. You seen?
Facts, absolute facts. So today, guys, we have a really good conversation. Today, we're gonna talk about community space and more so on the appreciation of community space, but also the different avenues and different, trials and tribulations that happen to obtain community space. So we're gonna talk a bit about ArtWorxTO, something that Nathan has launched, and honestly, it's been getting tremendous response and reception. So congrats to him for that. We're gonna talk about some of maybe the gaps and the barriers that are being placed as well. We're gonna appreciate some of the space. Now, I might do something later on where I might create like a list so that way people could like check out these space because I do believe it's important that we're all being involved in the community. Again, I've been very busy, so like I'll try to do that for you guys. But in the meantime, Nathan, thank you for coming on the podcast. And before we even get to all that, tell people who you are because I feel like if people don't know who Nathan is, then it's okay. You probably need to probably wake up a bit, but it's okay. But Nathan, now that you're here on the Safe Room, tell us a bit about yourself and like what you do and how passionate you are about your arts.
Yes. My name is Nathan Baya. I am an artist. That means rap. That means singing. That means poetry. That means dance. Artists in definitely a lot of capacities. I'm also an artist facilitator. That means I'm able to, and that also came from me understanding that I'm an artist and I need the ability to be able to have a safe space to be able to do my thing. And I've learned the city doesn't have a lot of that. So I've been forced to create that. So I guess that made me fall in the bracket of an artist facilitator. So I'm just an all around artist and community worker, just trying to make sure his light shines and also create a pathway for other people to shine as well. So I would say that's me and what I do.
Well, that's great to hear, and I love how you mentioned like you're an artist facilitator. That's
Mm-hmm.
a strong position for sure. You know how you kind of acknowledge at first, like what, I'm gonna have to create this safe space because it's nothing that's kind of given to me, and like it's hard to like find those paths to get to establishing that space. So I appreciate you took the initiative. People like everyone listening, it's hard to do that at first because you kind of wonder, could I even like establish this? Do I have enough of a name or like enough voices to establish something like that? But honestly, like believe in yourself, and you can wish anything into fruition, into reality. So
100%, 100%, but 100% manifestation and positive affirmations, and just it all starts with believing in yourself because so many people have all these incredible talents, but they just have lack of belief in themselves. And what that
mm,
creates is just a sense of all these incredible gems and diamonds that are stored inside you, but that never get a chance to be outside of your body, which, like you want to be able to explore those gems because there's so many people that didn't share their light. There's so many things we would not know, right? So, so
right.
first, I'll big up yourself for sharing your light on this podcast.
Yeah, appreciate the love. Appreciate the love, man. Man, we're off to a great start. Love the positivity.
Of course.
So yeah, you've kind of grown to be like well, in my consideration, like a pillar for the Jane Finch community. You have done so much as a leader and artist, and I just want to know like what keeps you pushing, especially in terms of like the progress of Jane Finch, because there's a lot of people who are familiar about Jane Finch. Unfortunately, due to the negative stereotypes and assumptions, like it's dangerous. There's a lot of gun violence, the low poverty. So like, I'm just curious, like despite all the negative hate that's being thrown around, and honestly, it feels like it's not going to disappear. Like, what keeps you pushing inside to see the betterment of that?
Yeah. Thank you first of all. And I think what keeps me pushing essentially is just within life, life will constantly give you a battle. think there will be times you're in the ring of life and you're fighting and you're getting knocked out. There's going to be times when you're also winded. But as long as your heart is beating, you got to get back up. But you only can if you have a strong purpose. And I think what keeps me thriving is that I have a purpose. I have a child. Also, just have a reason to live is just simply that as long as I live, my art has to reflect that. So every day I live, there's something for me to speak about, and art is a medium for me to talk to people. And then, but to be able to do art is a privilege. And constantly, Toronto and the world in general will create a bit of an issue around an artist being able to express himself, and nothing is free, right? So I guess what keeps me
Mm.
thriving is the fact that, like, oh, that a bunch of people want to express themselves, but they don't have the ability to. So I'm one of the fighting voices in that realm of, like, no, every area in Toronto should have an ability to have some self-expression, should be made affordable for those youth. So I guess what keeps me pushing is the ability to give everybody a chance to speak. Hence, which is why I launched my organization entitled Jane Street Speaks. That was a dope segue.
That was a perfect segue, and yeah, that's such a beautiful response. I love how you mentioned the fact how art in like today's world doesn't seem to be free. Like there's always a cost to it to express your own opinion, and I feel like it's having community spaces, having these spaces that like artworks, which we're gonna get to like very soon. It allows for that same environment who's kind of like dispersed in a way because you hear different people with different stories and experience that they want to tell and share, but the problem is it's like maybe you're not able to resonate on it that well because like again there's so much coming from so much different areas as well. But when you have a space where everyone can come together and have that unity and that strength, that way you're able to share the narrative much better. It becomes more clear. It's not like, oh, I heard one piece of this. Oh, but then I also have to hear the next part from that, the next part from that. And it's like kind of bouncing off. And it's like, well, wait, what's the overall like arching theme? So I feel like, having these community spaces and like it's very crucial. It's very crucial in terms of just like our lifestyle, our happiness, our self worth, and able that any issues that are going on in the community, they're allowed to be heard. I think that's very important, and I love how the way you kind of explain like your passion and what keeps you pushing for that. I thought that was amazing. So going on to the next things, artworks. Listen, man, it's been getting a lot of talks, man. Like, yo, big up yourself for that, for real,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yo, man,
honestly,
respect, B. Respect.
so
Respect.
yeah,
Respect.
honestly, like take me back to when like the idea first originated with you. Like, what exactly was like the mindset for you accomplishing this goal? What was something that maybe you ideally thought at first, like, okay, it's probably gonna go like this. Maybe I have this person helping me with this, or maybe this is my plan for it to compare to like what actually happened. Like, just walk me through step one to what's happening currently right now.
Yeah. Okay, so essentially how the collaboration with the city came about was, um so basically I created this thing called Aspire to Inspire. And essentially Inspire to Inspire was an opportunity for me to give community members from my community an opportunity to shine within their community, because not enough time, there's not enough Jane and Finch representation within Jane and Finch. So essentially that's what we would do by creating these banners with a community member's face and quote. And typically I would ask those community members for a quote that if a youth was to pass by your quote, it would give them a sense of motivation as they're carrying on in
Right.
life while they're carrying through the mall. So essentially we put up quotes in the mall and the pictures and everything. And then we then took it a step further, and during summertime we created banners around the mall. So it was a big move for the block in general. Now, at one point, the city had saw this, and they're like, you know what? We want to honor what you're doing with an exhibition. So essentially, from there, I was like, well, why would I say no to that? Because now we're going from just Jane and Finch to the city of Toronto, and the city of Toronto is acknowledging that Jane and Finch has something worth that the city should see. So I
Mm,
looked at that as an opportunity to say, my community, as much as I have to fight those negative stereotypes about my community, I get an opportunity to showcase that to the city. So then I took on the exhibition with ArtWorxTO, which is essentially they gave everybody in Toronto a hub. I mean, they gave Scarborough a hub, Saga a hub, downtown a hub, and the hub for North York was us. Um,
mm-hmm.
And essentially it was just good to be able to see the city, the mayor, everybody come to Downsview Park and be able to just speak on Jane and Finch as an area that is worthy of praise and love and admiration. And I think what that does is kind of neglects that stereotype that we're just a community filled with violence, as we were all there to be a part of an exhibition that is about showcasing the parts of the community that are not spoken about enough. So with that situation with the city, the number one thing I've always encouraged and said is that we need more media representation of Jane and Finch, like, and I think that was a big step towards it. So yeah, I'm happy, and congratulations to the community, and not only me, but to the community, because it's like we did that, because if there was nothing to showcase, I would have nothing to put in the exhibition. So as much as I
Right.
celebrate myself, I celebrate every community worker who made this community something worthy of me growing up to defend. So yeah, big up the whole block.
Amen to that, my
Yeah.
brother. Amen to that. I love how you mentioned media representation. Listen, if anyone who's from the government, City of Toronto, listening, we want to be part of this strengthening like partnership. We want to work with you. We do. But we can't do that if it's like you guys are not willing to take the extra step, because also it's like a double-edged sword. It's like you want them to come, but you're so worried that okay, if they come, they're about to kind of say, "Oh, we're so proud of like what they're doing," but truly, you have no clue what's even happening in the community. But the second time, like if we want people to know what's going on, we need that extra platform, to express the narrative and what's actually happening. So it's glad to know that from you and Artworks, like everything's kind of stemmed from Inspire to Inspire, and with the involvement of media representation and the city of Toronto, that this was such a huge success. And I think it's important that media doesn't try to spin certain topics into like, oh, this is gonna pop a rating, or like this is what's gonna get people's eye because it's propaganda. It's like, no, like you guys are journalists. Tell the truth. Like, is that boring to y'all? Like, I don't understand. Like, listen, man. Like, if it's boring to y'all, then hey, do do your propaganda on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram. Don't be doing it on these major news outlets, because then you're just adding misinformation. Like this is for me coming from someone who studied like communication studies. Like misinformation is so poisonous than rather than fake information, because like fake information you can identify that, but misinformation you literally
Mm-hmm.
cannot blur between the lines. Whatever is real to you in your ideology of like, oh, this is right. It's like, no, that's your confirmation bias kicking in of like you want to believe it's right, but it's not. So I completely secondhand commend you for media representation. Listen, make it happen. Make it happen. We want to be heard, but we also don't want you to come in there and be like, oh, we're so proud of what they're doing. Just be like, listen, they called us, and whatever we can do to be involved and strengthen this, we can do that. Like that's all we ask. Like I'm not yelling. See, you notice, guys, I'm not even yelling. I usually go on a rant, but I'm being calm this time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're saying the real thing, and I like that misinformation piece you added to it, because that's a key component that, when something is just blatantly stupid, you're able to be like, okay, this is not worthy of my attention. But misinformation will have you running with information that's not real, right? And I think a
Right.
lot of people have been misinformed about this community. And then yes, we've had shootings, but like every community other has as well. It's just whenever things happen in the Black community, it's like, all right, so when a white kid shoots like a Columbine situation, or any situation where there's been a white child who has put a massive murder, killed 13 kids, whatever it is, they're gonna not look at the whole of white people in that way. They're gonna look at that white child like that, and they're gonna try to find innocence and victimize him and say, oh, Timothy was just 5, and he would, when he got slapped, and that's why he became a mass murderer. Whatever they
Right.
have to say to kind of make sense of his stuff, right? But when a Black person from Jane and Finch does something, that one Black person speaks for Black people. They speak for that community, so everybody gets written off. So that's why, and that's the unfortunate part, that when one Black person does something good, they're like an anomaly. You're so different than them. You're like the only one. Wow. It's just you, eh? You're not like those other guys. And
And before you even continue,
yeah.
you're
That's
looking at him like I feel like
uh
I feel that energy, and like when even when the person who's considered to be anomaly and they feel that and they have guilt for it, that's how you know it's very poisonous. But like continue what you were saying.
no, bro, I'm sure you've been through it with those random off comments of like, wow, you're so different than the others. What? Like, what does that even mean? You know, like, I'm black, they're black. Are you talking the fact that I did something proper and you thought that all of us were not proper? You know, and then people will showcase their internal racism that they're not even aware that's racism. So to me, it's like when I do something good, I always say it in reference to my community because I've learned from them. So I am them. You know what I mean? I am my ancestors. So when I do something good, it's not just bigging me. That's bigging up my mother, my father, the community I come from, everybody who played a part in my upbringing, because it's all of us winning because I could not be here by myself, right? So I try to kind of negate that mentality, you know? And I just know for us what it means when we do good because we're just at a different level in terms of that innocence factor. And I think the best way to correct people when they have that whole "you're not like them" approach is to tell them you're racist, and then educate them on the fact that it's like you have a prejudice that you think all of us are what you heard, but you're misinformed. I'm not like logically, I can't be the only one out of all of them because if they're all like that, I would be influenced to be the same thing just by nature.
Right.
So I must have been influenced to do good, and my influence comes from my ancestors, you know? So
Mm.
just like whatever influence your ancestors got to be colonize people, that was your influence, yes. You know, like but my influence is different, you know, and that's what led me to be where I am today. But black people aren't seen as humans, they're seen as like super figures. I don't know what we're seen as, but
we're
we're just
we're
human too.
we're viewed
Yeah.
as like guinea pigs in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're like lab test experiments. We're like, okay, we're gonna like test this out and everything just to see if it goes
Mhm.
right. If it goes right, cool. If it goes wrong, then like whatever. But no, like honestly, I also think like misinformation stems on what's the power dynamics as well. Like you mentioned about internal
Mhm.
racism and everything. Like whoever is in power is the one that gets to tell the story and the narrative. So I feel like that's important to like understand that this again, you mentioned like ancestors. It stems back to like the roots of racism. Like there's a hierarchy in place. If you're not at the top, then you're not meant to have a voice. You're not meant to tell the truth on what's actually real and what's not. So I feel like the development of community spaces, based on what we're talking about, it allows at least for that power dynamic to kind of just be reformed because I'm gonna be honest, as a black man, as a human being, I, I don't think this power dynamic is gonna go away. It's not gonna vanish. There's always gonna be ignorant people that's gonna try to use their supremacy over others. But you can like put it to a way where like it's not full on like we're going back to like the 50s and 60s in terms of like who's in control and this and like no, like we can all live in a world where like I have my space, appreciate it, don't depreciate it, please. Like don't try to take that away from me. Don't try to take it away because it doesn't fit with your mold. If it doesn't fit with your mold, make your own space. Leave my space out of it. I think that's just something that needs to be said.
Yo, 100%. Because it does need to be said. We need to be able to respect goes such a long way. You know what I mean? Respect is also reciprocal. And I think for men, we're just taught so many things that negate that concept. You're told, hey, be a nice guy. And then it's like, okay, you can be nice, but don't be naive. And a lot of us don't know the
Mm,
difference between that concept. You're being nice to something that's not respecting you, to something that's demoralizing, to something that's not good and kind to you. Now you don't have to answer with disrespect. You can answer that with leaving that alone. Like not everything is worth responding to. And as you grow, you'll definitely identify whatever is worth responding to for yourself. But I think, yeah, in general, respect people's spaces, people's sexuality, people's choices, and that has nothing to do with you, yo. Just mind yourself. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the times people are not caught up in taking care of themselves and minding themselves. So they just get so caught up in people them things where it's like, yo, you don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like I can come to your platform, like I'm here today, big up your thing, you know what I mean? Give you some support, and then you come to my, you big up my thing, and then that's how we kind of grow networks of community where yeah, we all support each other to different capacities that we can. Because what does it
Mm-hmm.
cost me to come here and talk to you for an hour or something just to chat and big up your thing, right? But people have a kind of it's my light all the time kind of energy that I'm not really into, which is why I did launch a hashtag called support local before global to kind of counterattack that energy in Toronto that we're this crab in the barrel mentality. Like we can all support each other, like,
Right.
and we can all rise globally, which the US artists and the US platforms have done that extremely. Americans have a way of building as a team. Like every artist, Kendrick Lamar, TDE, um, you know, can't think of everything off the top of my head, but even when you see a solo artist, their back end team is strong as hell.
Right. Like
You know what
Kendrick
I mean?
Lee, J. Cole
A-
with Dreamville.
Dreamville, ASAP Rocky with his people, them, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so they all build in a team setting, right? But in Toronto, it's like every man for themselves. But that will never work.
Mm-hmm.
That will never work. Yeah,
Yeah.
that will
So
never work.
yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna go to
Mm.
like one last thing before we get into like, the
Yeah.
some other points. What has been like your most memorable achievement? I know it's vague, I know it's broad, but I'm very curious because I feel like you've done so much that it's like there has to be one that kind of resonates with you.
Yeah. I think my most that's a good question, bro. Jeez. My most memorable experience. I would say, you know, I've lived for 24 years and my mother has never attended one performance, but the first performance she attended was recently, and that was the opening of the launch of my exhibition with the city. And
Mm,
John Tory told her, you should be very proud of your son. And I think for the mayor to have told that to my mom in front of me, and her saying thank you, and her later on being proud about that, was a sign for me to understand that, like, you know what, um, I'm doing something important here. I'm doing something real here, and my parents can now see that. And then there's been other incredible accomplishments as well. You know, like that I just never thought I would be like. I never thought me and the prime minister would be in the same building, and I'd be doing music, and he'd be then speaking later on after. Like, I'm not too much of a political person, nor do I agree with whatever all these politicians do. But you just don't envision yourself in certain spaces as a kid, like,
right.
you know what I mean. So when you kind of get there, it's like, wow, you're just focusing on yourself, like what that can do for you, or is incredible. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
great to hear, and I totally get the fact of how you don't know if you're gonna like be part of the situation at the
yeah,
beginning because like
yeah,
life back on. It's like, oh, I'm just here. I guess it just happens.
yeah,
So I just gotta like enjoy the moment and soak it in.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, literally.
yeah. So I know we're talking about community spaces, and honestly, like the appreciation aspect is like very, very important in my opinion, because I feel we hear a lot about like, oh, there needs to be more spaces. Why aren't we like opening like this organization, this and that, which is fair because that
Hmm.
is still an ongoing issue. But I feel like we never
Hmm.
stop to like really take in like how much like spaces are like still doing the
Available.
work and available for like just kind of just for support. Like, see, for me, because I'm doing community research for the Jane Finch Community Research Partnership, so we're always doing consultations, connecting with people, and like through these consultations, like I'm really thinking to myself, like, wow, I'm like, how come no one knows about a Jane and Finch Family Center? How come no one knows about a Peach? How does no one know about a JFab or like this organization? Like, what's like, what is going on? So it's like I feel like there definitely needs to be more ways to appreciate these platforms, and like it's really about how that can be achievable. Like, how do you do it? Is it that maybe you just is there like ways of like accessing like a resource where like, hey, here's are all the different, organizations, all the different spaces that are doing work here. You can access them if you're interested. Maybe like do it as like a way for employment, connect it with that, something as in terms
Mm-hmm.
of just, hey, we want to help you. So come and like work with us. That could be a way, and not just even
Yeah.
like community organization. Maybe even just spaces that just like for relaxation and everything. I even see it on online too in social media, which is a huge influencer. Like people are always like sending me like, oh, he heard of this group, I heard of this group, and it's like now like my entire timeline is more flooded with like community organizations and spaces rather than like maybe my favorite YouTuber and my favorite artists and stuff like that. And it's not something that like I'm being forced because like no, like this is something that's passionate to me. And I try to use my platform with my podcast to kind of bring people on, share what they're doing so that way my audience kind of knows like, oh, like okay, so I didn't know about this. Maybe I should go check them out because Sean had this person. So like I know you were talking about before how you wanted to come on here with me and like kind of help me out and like I was like that same type of love. I completely agree with you. Like that's what I'm trying to do. So I feel like there definitely needs to be more appreciation talks
Right.
about it rather than just
Right.
oh negative negative. We need more spaces. Like be grateful for what you have, people. Come on.
Right. 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 I think it's a fine tuned balance in being grateful for what you have and always wanting more. But I think from gratitude is a good attitude to start from. And I definitely feel like, before we complain about we need more space, what are you doing with what you currently have? Because if you can't manage what you have, God can't elevate you past that. So I think you really do have to work with the scraps or whatever you had. Remember, like when I was in high school or wherever I was at, I just looked at everybody in there. I'm like, okay, like I have clientele. I have youth clientele. Youth listen to music. Youth consume products. So if I can figure out what 500 students in this middle school could like, then I could launch it to 500 students. And from there, it's just your ability to hustle from scratch. You know what I mean? Like you really have to become fully self-independent with next to nothing. Even one of my mentors, he has a mobile recording studio that he's able to just have enough equipment to go to wherever you're at, mobily record, you come back home, mix and master your record, and send it back to you. So when he doesn't even have a physical space, but that goes to
Mm,
show you think outside the box when there's not even a box to work with. So when people like that get a physical space, it's crazy because they've learned to do without it for so long. So I would encourage anybody, you can complain about getting a space as much as you want, but I would say the number one thing to do is learn to work with what you have and make the best out of the situation. And God will honor you and give you more of an ability to create more.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's just so focused of like we need more, we need more, need more. It's like this consumer trap. And like forgive me if I go a little business tech on people. Again, it's my major, so I'm kind of used to this conversation. But the more we start to like accumulate on different like goods and services or like anything that we want, like in terms of like interest and stuff, it's gonna lead to a point where like you're going up this pyramid scheme where you're pushing up and up and up, and then when you get to the top, like there's nothing left. You're just like everything is just gonna crash and burn because like when you're balancing so much, when do you have the time to like allocate and say, okay, let me focus on this, let me focus on that, And again, it's such a universal type of process that can be applied to just even the simplest thing. Like maybe you're trying to like expand on your form of music. For example, like let's take you. Let's say, you know what, I don't want to do more than just like R&B and hip hop. Like let me do some gospel, let me do some reggae, let me do dance, let me do all of this, and like I'm gonna focus on all of this all the time. Now you didn't realize, oh, now there's new audience. Oh, wait a minute, like now I have to figure out like what are the key demographics for those audience, and it's just like you're pushing so much. It's at a point like you feel like you're gonna crash and burn, and it's kind of like okay, now I gotta go back to just square one. Let me just stick to like R&B and rap, and it's like you could have took all the time to like work on your craft on that one thing instead of like trying to do a bunch of other things that you weren't even ready for and you never really needed. But at the time you were telling yourself, "Oh, I need it," but you didn't. So I do think that we have to learn to use with what we have now, and then that way, we could probably build something in the future because we already established a platform that is solid, that is foundational, and that has already been completed, not like halfway completed, and you just want to do more things because of like, oh, you know what? Because like I kind of feel like I want to, but like, are you gonna put the time in? So like, I think that's like really important.
Yeah. I think essentially it's about, they say it takes 10,000 hours to master one craft, and unfortunately sometimes like when you're in a situation where you're multi-talented, you must allocate enough hours to each craft to truly master a craft, or else you might have a bunch of uncompleted talents and never be able to full on get to the full potential of each talent that you possess. So I think it's just about finding time within your daily life. And I think like when you're not rich or whatever, it's kind of hard to balance that factor out, because you have to find time in the midst of school, or find time in the midst of work, or find time in the midst of whatever occupation that you have going on. But whatever time you have to yourself, it's truly important to use that timeline to occupy and focus on, you know, um, growing in the departments that you would like to grow in, especially if that can change your life and change your family's life. And, it's always best that you thrive, like you focusing on this podcast. And, you just never know what things can be. Like half of the things you accomplish in this lifetime just come from believing that you can do it. And you're like, oh, I actually did it. And it's like, yeah, well, you didn't believe in yourself, right? And that's just it. That's just it. From when you believe in yourself, you can literally accomplish it. Because if another human being did it, you can do it too. Like
Right.
it's not like a Greek Egyptian god did it. Like a human being that bleeds like you did it as well. So whatever footprint you get to there, you can do it too. Just believe in
Yeah.
yourself.
Everyone listening, it's not complex. It's not. Just stick to one thing. Just like work on it. Work on it. If you have the
Mm-hmm.
passion for it, just put in the work and show your passion to it. It will be hard. Trust me. It won't be easy. Like if you want to establish a space for inclusivity, for love, self-worth, it won't be easy. And like honestly, you need to like understand that. Like some people want to deny and like, oh no, like I can't push through, which is again, you want a positive mindset, but you also want to be prepared for the times where you will fall down and you need to learn how to just get up and keep trucking. So yeah. So like there's so much gaps and barriers in place, obviously, for establishing community space. We talked about the appreciation, but obviously there's the issues of obtaining or creating these community spaces. And I think one famous gap and one disparity is finance. You know, I think we all have these conversations where like I want to do this, I want to do that. You have so much great ideas, so many great things you want to implement, put into the real world, let people hear. But it's like, do you have the funds for it though? Like you got the bread for it though. So like that's another thing that people are just like battling for in terms of like where do I get the finance, you know? So I mean, Nathan, I mean, I don't know if you want to speak on it because like I know you've had like help from the
Yeah.
city of Toronto, but I'm pretty sure even before that even came to play, you were probably contemplating like, yo, how am I gonna like even fund this? And like when you do get the funds, like how do I work with it?
Well, I think from when I was 15, I was attending a studio called Palisades Media Arts Academy, and that studio had a closure where the doors were locked and we just couldn't access the space. And as youth participants, we were told that it ran out of funding. We later on found out that was untrue, and $150,000 went missing. So at 15, I recognized like I wanted to be an artist and I wanted to be able to have that self-expression, but well, of course, I wasn't able to pay for mixing and mastering and all those things. So that's when I found out about this organization called Q, and I got my first grant. And I recognized a lot of other community members needed that same sense of local outlet, but didn't have the same financial situation I was in. So I, from there, partnered with Q at 16 to get other artists in my community funded. And then from there, that's when I started working on the trajectory of being an artist facilitator by realizing the same position I was put in, a lot of people were put in as well, but not everybody's going to go and find a grant or find a company to partner with for the betterment of their community. So those two things became my passion: artistry and supporting artists. So essentially, it was just that. I think like when it comes to finances, life will force you to budget, and you just have to figure out how you're going to make money And I encourage any artist like to just, balance it out between a job and your artistry. Just because your artistry money is a bit up and down, while you can have the security of a job to kind of balance you out. But in general, you also don't want to put all your artist endeavors on upon your check. So I think it's just about us getting a bit more knowledgeable on how much the city does actually fund art, but how much we're not applying to grants. Which, and at that point, is just ignorance on our parts to know that there's money for what we want to do, but we're there trying to balance our money between our art and our livelihood, which will actually dismotivate you from doing art by finding yourself in poverty just from trying to be an artist. We literally have a title for it, which is called impoverished artists or struggling artists, and we've created this mentality that you have to be an artist. That means that you have to be broke, right? So I think it's all about financial literacy. And I think if you just work on it daily, then you will get to that point where you're at least stable to a degree where your bills are paid, your artistry is met, and you're okay. You might not have 100,000 left, but you're doing your purpose, you're happy, and your bills are paid, and you're able to just sit down and relax, And the more I think you can handle that, the more likely God will bless you to be able to do more. But God can't bless you to do more when you can't even handle the blessing that He gave you to begin with, right?
Mm, my gosh, Nathan, you're just dropping gem after gem. You mentioned financial literacy. That's the magic word right there. Listen, that is such a crucial part. And also, like, I think there needs to be more like grant writing workshops or
Mm-hmm.
like honestly, I'm really surprised that universities haven't established like stuff like financial literacy or like grant writing as a course. Like I find that mind boggling. Like I know universities have to deal with their own stuff, but I mean, come on, man. Like that would be so helpful because there's some people they're motivated, they want to get the money, but it's like, oh, like I don't know what like this term means or I don't know how this process goes through. And like when you try to check out different policies that these different funding agencies offer or what these organizations offer, it's just like you can't understand the language that's being like seen in front of your screen. It's like you get so dismotivated. It's like, you know what, I don't know, this is too hard. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
because like they don't have the chance to educate on the topic of financial literacy and how to understand to do grant writing. So because of that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like when they see that, they are kind of expecting like, okay, step one, step two, step three, but really it's like a whole bunch of stuff. And like when they see that, they're just like, yeah, you know what, I don't think this is worth it. That's
Right.
something that needs to be fixed. Like I think having financial literacy courses, grant writing courses is crucial. And there are organizations, nonprofit organizations in the community that are establishing that. But I think it would really have an impact if we put those in those academic institutions. Like I feel like those are really important to like really implement.
Yo, 100%. I think like the closest thing we get to financial literacy is, hey, Timothy has five apples. If you take away four, what does he have left? I don't know, one. Like I think like we need to be a bit more realistic. Yo, your rent costs 1,600. You make 800 every 2 weeks. How are you gonna pay rent but find a livelihood after that? I guess I gotta get a part time. Like you see what I mean when you put youth in real situations and then you
Mm-hmm.
show them, yeah, you might have to get a part time because a full time job only pays enough to supplement your rent. How are you going to make the money for your phone bill? Because when you put me in those scenarios from a youth has the understanding that bills are not fun. So as I'm there
Mm,
raving about, I want to be an adult, I want to be older, sure, but that comes with a level of responsibility that you might not want. But when we were saying we want to be older, we were just looking at the freedom aspect. We didn't know everything that freedom comes with because freedom does come at a cost. You want to
right.
be free, you got to be able to not pay for you. So I think essentially it's all about just yeah, financial literacy is definitely a tool, but beyond financial literacy, they need to teach courses on how to deal with depression, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with,
Mental
you
health.
know, mental health, poverty, and all those kind of things. Because think about all the stuff you learned in high school. What is really relevant now? Do you think dissecting a frog is relevant to what I'm doing in
Yo,
my
like
like?
y equals mxb plus squared. Listen, man.
Yeah, like it's none of that. None of that is really actively playing a role in my livelihood currently. Like there's nothing like the most high school, yeah, being on time for being on time, but
Mm.
like, and yeah, reading and writing and those kind of simple things. But in general, though, like if you see people never go to school but able to live life, then then it's never being, it's for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, it's really important. Like just to like side note a bit before we kind of get continue the conversation. Like when I keep visiting back to my old high school, just hearing about the people like, oh, how do you enjoy it? It's like, do you feel the teachers are kind of giving you advice or like skill set that you can build on? People are like, we learn the same stuff, like and it's the same things that I learned back then. Like we always talk about like William Shakespeare or the First World War, or like all these topics that like you it's kind of it's like a recital at this point. Like it's over and over and over again. And people, it's like, you know what? Because of that, I don't think I'm going to college, university. Honestly, I might just like take a part time job. Because like, what's the point of that? And like again, it puts in the hole that colleges, universities are not offering like financial literacy or like courses on that. Because of that, it widens the gap even more. Where it's like, okay, you're leaving high school, you're doing a job, but now it's kind of like you're putting more responsibility on yourself now because it's like, okay, let's say I'm working and I have bills to pay. How am I going to manage that? And maybe let's say I have a car as well. I have to work on that. How I'm going to pay off the down payments and everything that. And maybe when you get older, you have to focus on like a house. And it's like there's just more and more. And it's like you could have probably got some information or like skills if college or university taught this. But again, that's where the gap still remains. And I feel like that's something that has to be addressed sooner than later. Like I feel like it should be something universities, colleges, and even government are working on, whether it's a multi-plan framework, something around that, or even a policy, like its own separate policy that you can implement in every public university so students can access, like on an open access database. Like, and I don't want to hear no excuse about, oh, we don't have the funds. Let me tell you something. There were rumors about people were like about a World War III, I think early 2020. Canada was so ready to put so much money on that. So don't give me this excuse about there's no money around. We can't spend. There's money.
Like, the
Okay.
money is printed paper. That's the part we all forget. Just a bunch of printed stuff.
Right. So like I don't even want to
So
hear that,
so
man.
just print more.
Yeah, print more.
Yeah, just okay, print more. But that's what it is. Just a
Uh
piece of paper.
yeah.
So that goes to show you how powerful an item can be that you define it by, right? Like it's a piece of paper, guys. So it's and we've like you see how messed up that is just in general, that it's a piece of paper that we're going to war about. You know,
Mhm.
it's like we don't have it, just print more. But whoever is in charge of the printing, just print more. But yeah, bro, it's they need to do it, and I think they will do it the more we start creating more sense of pressures around it. Because just in general, with the amount of people who are battling with depression, anxiety, and a bunch of things, and financial literacy, it's like, yeah, like guys, at one point, like like when are we gonna realize we're setting these kids up for failure by sending them out of high school with like just nothing, like nothing. Like this guy clearly doesn't know what he wants to do, and then you're after high school, you're being told, hey, just go pick what you want to study for the rest of your life. Like what? Like you just turned 18. You know what I mean? Like not every youth is privy to knowing what they want to do at that age. Hell, you're like, come on, you're just a kid. And you're supposed to, and not every kid has the privilege to, yeah, I'm gonna study 10 things until I find what I want to do. No, because those 10 things cost a lot of money. So
Money,
you
yeah.
better, yeah, you better shoot the right gun from your first clip. You're not
Yeah,
privileged like that.
like
You know what I mean?
absolutely, man. Like it needs to be established. We have to keep applying pressure again. If sometimes it feels like your morale's going down because like nothing's being heard, well, you got to find ways to just keep trucking and keep pushing. Because if you are passionate and you want to see change, then you can't just give up after like maybe two or three attempts. Like, listen, the government sometimes you're gonna have to send like 100 attempts just to like get their like just a peek of someone say on the other end like, oh yeah, we've heard your response. Like so that's just how the system is built at this point. So we have to really address these issues. In terms
Yep.
of next steps, what would you, for someone who has, like, again, open artworks, what would you give as like advice to someone who kind of wants to, build upon like a community space? And I know we probably talked about it throughout this
Yeah.
conversation, but like, what would you advise someone who, especially someone who, they've had the idea, and like just from some type of like self motivation that can't be explained, it's like, oh, you know what, I want to do this, but it's like I don't know where to start. Like, what would you give to them as like advice?
Um. Okay. I would say to anybody, I would just tell them, all right, like, what are you? What like? I would just tell them to really focus on getting better at whatever it is that they can do. Like practice, practice, practice. Like just put in constant practice on your craft. And practice can look like you finding out the nearest open mic in your city and going out there, whether that's done virtually or in person, and just constantly going on different stages, ironing out your skills, sharpening your skills, meeting people who are in the same realm of what you want to do, and just build from everybody, pick out everybody's brain. Like I know a lot of highly talented people and people in good high positions because they just always knew that I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, and I'm here to take advantage of every opportunity that is given to me and spread the opportunity. So
Right.
you just got to be hungry. You got to be hungry and know there's a million ways you can eat. And the biggest way that you can eat is just constantly. And after a while, to me, I was just performing at every open mic in the city, possibly going just anywhere. It was to the point with me where I would literally between Monday to Friday go on Google and I would search in open mics. And sometimes I'd go to wherever it was at. And sometimes I'd pull up and be like a bar filled with white people doing country music, and I'd still find my way on the mic just to be able to get that practice in to
I
know
love it.
how to, you know what I mean, to know how to work every crowd I can be given. And then after a while, open mics only came from me not being booked for shows. And I'm there like, you know what? I'm tired of waiting to be booked or whatever. But what I would also do as advice to encourage booking is I would go to these open mics, I'd get my friend to film me performing, and I would post it and showcase, look, this is what I'm able to do with a crowd full of strangers. And me just showing up here, sometimes even without an audio in the background, just me, my voice alone. And it would kind of give shows a sense of like, yo, we should book this guy. But after a while, I got tired of waiting on booking. I said, you know what? Nobody wants to book me. I'm going to book myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did that. And from there, other people had the same struggle as me. And I booked them too. And then from there, I just said, all I need is me and people who believe in me. And even if my first event doesn't have 100 people in the room, if it just even has 5 or 10, I'm building from here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm performing like it has 100. And then at one point, what that proves to people is I don't need you. Like I don't need you. If you show up, that's good. If you don't, that's fine as well. You're the one missing out on the good show. I'm not going to stop my show because you don't want to play a role in the thing, It's
Mm-hmm.
just by the time the thing gets bubbly now, it's up to you, man. Everybody plays their part in the movie. Either you're going to play a supporting cast or you're just going to be an extra, or, but according to your level of support determines your position. So,
Mm, yeah,
yeah,
very.
yeah,
That's a strong advice right there. Like every star needs a supporting cast. Like, you're that star, and you have people who support you in what you do, and that's great. But you don't want to also have that cast who's trying to like show you fake love, and it's like, oh, I'm
nah,
happy for you, but really you're just upset because I got to this position before you did, but you're not even putting the work for it. You're kind of just expecting it to be handed to you. So I appreciate you giving that, like, yo, like, stay hungry, like, just stay hungry,
mm-hmm.
stay on your grind. That's honestly, that's some solid advice. Usually people would say like, oh, just kind of try to take things slow and everything like that. You're like, no, man, just go for the taking.
Yeah, go hard, because at the end of the day, that go hard or go home statement is a real thing. Like you have to have the ability to stay hungry, and then just go hard and let people see your process. Let people see you grinding, film you at those open mics, film you going to the gym. post that, and some things will be for the story, some things will be for the post, you know?
Mm,
And to me, it's like, yo, you just gotta let people know you're working. And at one point, you'll be working so hard, you don't gotta let nobody know nothing. They're hearing about you. And it's not even you posting you. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's just a matter of just keep going hard, and you have to, and that's the thing about going hard. You have to find a million avenues on how you're gonna eat. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like you can't just do things one way. Like there's a million ways for you to eat. I'm a person where I'm like, yo, I'll be a lot of the time. Sometimes people have seen me on the news. They think the news came to me. No, I came to them. I came to them, and I'm like, yo, you need to report the story. I'm just, because I remember being in a room. I think I was about 19 or 20. I was a part of this research about the Black experience. And I think that's the name of the documentary, The Black Experience. And at the launch of it, there was CP24 and CTV. And
mm-hmm.
I told myself, I'm walking out here with something. So I went to CP24, I went to CDTV, and I got an interview from the both of them just by walking up to them saying, hey, I was a part of the documentary. If you want to get a 30-second interview with me, I'm more than willing to talk about it. And they're like, sure. And then I go in there, spoke well for myself, spoke well about my community, had some impactful things to say. And then the CP24 girl came to the CTV girl and said, hey, he's good. Get an interview from him. But
Wow.
everybody is seeing that and thinks that, yeah, they came to Nathan because Nathan is big. No, they don't know shit about me. They just know that I'm good and I look good and I'm good for a story, right?
Mm,
But Instagram doesn't see that process. But when they get a chance to hear these stories, they understand, yo, you gotta be hungry and you gotta grind, and you just got to find a way to, work it. So don't ever be too prideful and think I'm too big, and I shouldn't have to do that. No, no, no. You're not as big as you think. You're not, no, you're not Michael Jackson. You're not there. So
yeah.
don't stress yourself. Like the world, like you're not an international star. And at the end of the day, even these international stars, they're famous in the quarters they're famous in. But there's
Mm,
other departments of the world that they don't have that fame in.
right.
Like, might be crazy to hear, but yes, Chris Brown is a local artist in a certain area in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure some artists go to Jerusalem, they're not known. like it just, what I mean? It's like, I'm making an example, but it's like, yeah, like you're never as big as you are. Even the biggest artists and the biggest artists are still looking for a way to crack in a different market,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's very important. Yeah, so I feel like this conversation was like it was fantastic, by the way. So thank you, Nathan, for coming on the safe room, just having this conversation, this talk. It was much needed. I feel like people who are listening, I hope you guys grab a better understanding on not only the issues but also the appreciation of community space, the appreciation of Nathan's work because you're doing a lot right now. Um, so I'm glad to have you on the podcast just to have these conversations to expand because I do believe it's important, especially from your stature as a artist, to get that perspective in because I could have talked about them by myself, and again, like I guess I would consider myself like in the realm of artists, not in terms of like maybe music, but like what I do with my podcasting, sure. But it's like I really wanted to like get you specifically, Nathan, because I feel like you definitely personify one aspect of like different variations of artists that I wanted to bring on. So once again, much gratitude. Appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
My brother, thank you for having me on your podcast. Keep supporting and highlighting local voices. I'm going to send you a few voices that I feel like will work great for this platform. And yeah, man, we're just all working on our way to the top, and one day at a time, and we'll all get there. We all got to stay hungry and keep grinding.
Right, for sure, for sure. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Nathan.Baya. So Nathan.Baya. And on every streaming platform, my music is at Nathan Baya. So, just taking the kid, taking the vibes, taking the voice, and Hope you like what you see and follow me on my journey because I'm going somewhere. I don't know where yet, but I'm going somewhere. Something
Hey
good.
man, you're going to the top. I'm telling you right now, you're going to the top. That's where you're going. I mean, depending what the top is defined, you're going to the top for sure. But yeah, thank
Yeah,
you,
man.
Nathan, for being part of this conversation. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram to stay from podcast. Make sure you go check out the official soundtrack for the podcast, First Lady by yours truly. Okay. I'm not gonna
Hey.
keep reminding you guys. Like, go check it out. I put so much hard work on that. Okay. So show your boys some love. Go check out the song. Tell me what you think. Is it cool? Is it something that you can little bop to? Just kind of vibe with. I try to like give it that R&B, just kind of smooth vibe and everything. I'll leave it in the description for you guys. But yeah. You know what? I might do like a bar breakdown, something like that. Maybe in the upcoming weeks.
Jeez, sounds tough. But all right, my G, I'm out of here. But yo, pick up yourself.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in to the Safe Room. We'll see you guys.
All right, yo, peace.